Welcome to Scrappy to Scalable, the podcast where we explore human-centered AI designed to level the playing field, empowering small and mid-sized businesses to compete with the giants.
Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Philippe Crook from Scrappy to Scalable, the show that talks about unpacking how to scale and grow your small-sized business. Today, we are joined by Cristy O'Connor and Aggie Shajinsky, co-founders of Athena Advisory Collective, a strategic advisory firm that partners with women-led and partnership-based businesses to help them scale, build enterprise value, and even prepare for exit. What's unique about Athena Advisory Collective is that they don't just talk strategy. They embed alongside founders as non-equity partners and guide them through real-world challenges of leadership, operations, and growth. I am really excited to talk to you, Cristy and Aggie. How are you? Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm really curious to get into this, but before we get going, I want to talk about your journey and what made you want to create Athena Advisory Collective.
I'm Cristy, and gosh, we could go really far back, but I think once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur. Growing up, my dad was always self-employed, had his own businesses, and I was kind of a classic babysitter. Always had my own business and side hustle. I was to the point where I would get like 3 or 4 families together, charge them a small discount, but I would be making a great profit. And this is like 25 years ago. I was getting easy $20 to $25 an hour babysitting.
Wow.
So really found my niche in that ability. And from there, I've been in everything from the public to the private sectors, working for large corporations and profits as well. But no matter what, I always found myself being pulled back into entrepreneurship. So running my own Pilates business, personal training. And then as time went on, I got into franchising. So I owned 13 franchises in 6 different states. And when we purchased the majority of those franchises, they were failing when we bought them. So my job was boots on the ground and going in and re-establishing business as norm and making those businesses profitable to then turn around and sell them again. The reason why I am passionate about being an advisor is because I personally had advisors along my way that helped me move faster and make less mistakes over time. And I feel like that's a real value add when you're really in the business and you're so close to it. It's really sometimes hard to get out of the day-to-day and understand what needs to be done and focused on in order to get past those bottleneck or pain points. And so because I gained a lot of value having advisors and mentors, I just felt like it's a great place for me to go and share my wealth of expertise and knowledge.
That's amazing.
Aggie. Yeah. Thanks for the punt. Very similarly, at a young age, I did not come from a family of entrepreneurs, although one could debate otherwise. However, I had background in athletics and didn't want to pursue athletics. So I had to figure things out. My parents always encouraged me, if you want nice things, you have to pay for them. And so I was born in Poland and raised in France. And so every summer we would go to Poland and I would go to markets there and buy things and then sell them back to my friends in France. And that's how I made my money. But my entrepreneurial journey really started when I ran a nonprofit that was tied to the University of South Carolina at the top. At that time, this was one of the top technology incubators in the United States. And I saw probably about 200 people who dreamt about being entrepreneurs who actually licensed technology out of the university and formed companies around that technology and sold it. And so I saw people start from nothing and become multimillionaires in the process. And I was like, wow, this is kind of cool coming from Europe and basically immersing myself into this type of culture. And my first company was actually a commercial janitorial company. And then I dabbled in tech, food and bev manufacturing, retail, and industrial commercial laundry equipment. One of the things that I think I realized over the course of all of my projects was the fact that I'm really a builder and not a maintainer. I had this, aside from my very first position at that nonprofit where I stayed for 8 years, so straight out of college for almost 9 years. Then I had 4 year stints. I would always get bored after 3 to 4 years and seek out the next project and the next opportunity. And so I had the privilege to be able to take a little sabbatical when my daughter was born. And I gave myself about a year and a half to figure out what it is that I wanted to do when I grew up. And aligned my perpetual builder to a vocation and came across advisory. And that's where Cristy and I met in 2021 at an advisory firm. We met for the first time in the mountains at a very large table, and we sat next to one another. We were the only women in the West Coast, a portion of that firm. And very
Did you say
quickly,
the West Coast? You were the only two women?
on the West Coast of that firm, we were the only two women. Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is. There were a lot more East Coast representatives. However, on the West Coast at that point in time, I remember it because we came to this house. It was our first retreat. I think I was 2 weeks in. Cristy might have been a month and 2 weeks in. And here we are, the two chicks with a bunch of dudes around us. And it could have gone either way. It could have gone the way that a lot of women are looking at each other in a workplace where there are very few of us and going the competitive route and saying, no, we're in the same state. We're technically fishing in the same pond for the same clients. It could have gone to where she and I would not have stood each other for a very long time. But I think what aligns us is we're very value aligned, and we decided let's join forces instead of working against each other, and a beautiful friendship began.
What are your collective values that you guys share so well?
Well, I think trust is a big one. Honesty, integrity. I could go off of, the list of values, but I think what really aligns us is our vision. Over the past 5 years that we've known each other, one of us will say, hey, I've always dreamed about ... And I'm like, oh my God, me too. And we find things that we've written somewhere and we're like, look, like this is what I was trying to accomplish back then. And this is really that vision alignment and the fact that we believe in a lot of the same things. We're very woo. We have a more complex approach to things than most people have. And so we see things completely and we're able to problem solve a lot faster because of it. And we also complete each other. It's super cheesy, but we do. We level each other out. Like she calls me out on my shit and vice versa.
I totally get that. My partner, my co-founder is actually my father, which everyone's like, are you seriously, you're going to go into business with your dad? But it has been super amazing to have that synergy. And he is like an operations nerd and spreadsheets, and I'm like the sales and marketing guy. So we definitely complement each other really, really well. And I think it's so important when you're working with a partner to have those, if you are good and strong at the same things, you're not always balanced, right? So if you can balance each other out. But going back to the vision that you guys share, what do you think? What is that vision for you and your?
It grows every day. I'll just say that. It's never ending. As Aggie said, she had every 4 years she would turn over. Mine was about 2.5, 3 years. I would find something new where I would get bored. So our large vision for Athena Advisory Collective, we will always have the foundation of being the non-equity business partners for our clients and helping them scale or prepare for an exit of their business. But in addition, we also have a podcast called Badass Women in Business, where we create a platform for women to share their stories and their journeys while they're in the thick of it. Not that they've actually made it to where their end goal is. We do women's retreats as well, where we blend both the personal and the professional so they can walk away with clarity moving into their new year or the next step of their lives. In addition, long-term vision, we want to have a fund where we can support women business owners in scaling and growing their businesses as well. And I'm sure I forgot one other thing, Aggie, but
I mean, those are great visions. I mean, that's a lot to handle just right now.
When we started Athena, the overarching vision was to impact as many women-owned businesses and partnerships as possible. And it's a stat play, right? Because when we're looking at the stats for women-owned businesses, and other underserved communities, they're dreadful. So if you're a woman, but if you're a Black woman or a Hispanic woman and you are owning a business, the stats are even more drastic. So if we're looking at women owned businesses in general, only 2.7% of them pass the $1 million mark.
2.7.
2.7% of women owned businesses crossed the $1 million mark.
That is crazy. You had some other stats that were really, really interesting when you were talking to my co-founder. Can you go into a little bit more into what those stats look like and then how you were trying to combat that? I mean, it must feel like an uphill battle.
100%, because it's like if you start with this stat that only 2.7% of women-owned businesses cross the $1 million mark, knowing that almost 40% of all businesses in the US are women-owned, like that puts things in perspective. That means that even though we represent about I think it's $3.3 billion in revenue for the economy, it's still so small compared to the majority of the conglomerates that we see out there that were at some point in time started by men and are still very male driven. But it starts as well from the perspective of women have a harder time getting financing. And most of us are proud as well to claim, hey, I ran my business and I completely bootstrapped it, which can be great in some situations. But really, if you're focused on bootstrapping, sometimes you're really roadblocking your growth. And so we recently went to an event here organized by probably one of the best business banks who cares about women-owned businesses. They're called InBank, so I'm plugging them. They're located here in Denver, Colorado. They organized this event called Girls Just Want to Have Funds. And so they brought a VC, the owner of an impact fund. They brought in someone who is a really well-versed in SBA funding. And I think it was only 2.4% of women-owned businesses are funded by external sources. So that's also an issue, especially in the VC space. It's dreadful that we don't go, and it's both due to the fact that we don't go after those funds because we don't have the confidence, because we don't have the financials to back us up, because we don't have a good growth plan, and also because we're having a hard time expressing our value proposition and how we solve the need of the market. So it's like some of us don't go for it and some of us just don't have the backbone to go after it.
I mean, there's a lot to unpack what you just said. Okay, so let's break this down a little bit. And I know you don't know why, but I'm sure you have opinions about why you think it's only did you say 2.7 women owned businesses reach the $1 million mark? Why do you think that is?
I would say, well, there's multiple prongs to that. I would say the first one is, and I literally just got off a call with someone that was just a random connection call, is women do not value their services at the rate it should be. So their pricing is usually off. I flat out asked someone, hey, what do you typically charge? That depends. It depends on the business. It depends on what the needs are. It depends on what. And I'm like, well, what's your baseline that you're creating that depends off of? You should at least have an hourly rate that your time is worth. And so when I speak to someone who's been in business for 30 years and they don't even have clarity on their pricing and the value that they bring, that is number one. Most women just think, hey, I'm making a great living. Now, if you're doing $500,000 in top line revenue and you're bringing home 40% of that, that's still great, right? From today's perspective. But what else could you do? How could you become more? How do you scale beyond yourself? And I would say that's the other reason is a lot of women business owners are solopreneurs. They're just out there that have a really great skill set in human resources, whatever it is. And that's the one thing they do versus looking at it as a bigger, how can we expand these service offerings and make something that is more cohesive and complete for the clients that we're serving. So I'd say pricing is one of the biggest areas that most women in business, I'm going to use the word fail at.
Because that seems like a mindset thing. Like, how do you get
100%.
people to break through the limiting beliefs that they have. Because I mean, I've been coached most of my career, all by women actually, and I love it because they collapse the time that it takes for me to really understand, to really grow, because they've been through it. Like they're like, get rid of this, get rid of that. How do you guys help people break through the limitations that they put on themselves, if even if they don't know that they're putting them on themselves?
That's the $100 million question
I
right
know,
there.
right? You'd be a billionaire if we all figured that out.
Well, I think part of it is from a mindset perspective. We do a lot of research of what people are charging out there, including for us, right? We had to do our own work and our own mindset coming into a uh, new project or a new job, right? When Cristy and I started, we were working as W-2 employees and we were kind of forced to charge what we needed to charge because that's what the firm said. Would I have charged that right from the get go, being a first time advisor? Hell no. And I had a hard time kind of linking my value to the price that I was charging because I had never done it at that scale. Yeah, sure, I had consulted, had done some advisory work, but not. I mean, yes, professionally, but not full time. And so I think that there is from a mindset perspective, it's interesting because I think men don't question it. They're like, oh, I'll just charge this and that's fine. Like we do a lot of sales enablement, CRO type work. And I remember our first project, we 100% undercharged. Like, I mean, to the tune of probably 10x what we should have charged. I mean,
Wow.
and we understood that with our second project to where we were pitching someone or we don't call it pitching. We were submitting our proposal to one of our prospects, and she's like, "Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I was quoted like 6 times what you're charging, and we had already raised our price." So I'm like, "Well, shit. If they're charging $60,000 and we're charging $10,000 for the same project, we need to like really grow our scope and go after the client." So it's also really understanding your ideal client persona. If you're serving anybody and everybody, you're not going to know what to charge. But I call it value perceived equals value actual, to where when somebody perceives you as a low cost, low value solution, they will not want to pay for it. But if you can really hone in that value prop that you're building and you know what needs you solve and you're talking to the right client, then you can sell anything to that specific client. And you don't have to have only one ideal client persona. You can have multiples, but every single one of those client personas needs to have a very clear delineation of what needs you solve for them, what solutions you provide to solve those needs, and what outcomes have you demonstrated in your past work that is going to entice them to work with you. And then it's reputation.
How do you get to the research part of your ideal client, your client avatar? We talk about that a lot in when we're talking to other companies. Is like you really have to understand who your client is. When you have a company that you're advising, how do you do the research to really hone in on that ideal client?
There's many ways you can go about it, but it's really starting with where you're at today. Take a look at the clients you are serving. Who are the ones you get excited about when you see them show up on your calendar? And who are the ones that are draining your energy, right?
Right.
That right there can start help you define who my ideal client is. And so a lot of times when you're starting out in business, you're going to say yes to everything just because you need to cover your expenses and you need to cover your bills. But you hit a point, and it's typically about 6 to 9 months if you're a new business, where you start really identifying who you like to serve. Where are you getting the best results based on the work that you are actually doing? And then you can start really honing in the ideal client, the problems you solve, as well as how do I attract them, right? And keep them. So, your ideal client, it can be formulatized, but it's also about going with your gut a little bit more on what it is you want and what you like and where you have your confidence of your knowledge expertise.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really smart. I had a coach who always had she said, look, we have a no asshole policy. So if you're a jerk, you're going to get kicked out. And I think that's a really, I really liked just how simple and honest that was. Like, Working with people who are a pain in the ass is so draining of your energy, and you don't have enough time to waste all your energy on people that you don't like.
Mm.
So I think I like what you said about really finding who you're excited to work with. When you were researching clients, do you get really granular into how, like, a market segment or a vertical for a specific business? Like, do you get that specific?
100%. We go deep into the data. One of our clients is thinking about investing in a commercial building. Like, I went as far as doing the entire traffic analysis to figure out like what percentage of people would likely stop at her place based on her type of business. So yes, we go very granular and we do research too. We'll cold call competitors and figure out like how do they approach their sales process? What are they selling? What are they overselling on? What are the things that are making them potentially weaker than our clients? And then if there is too much of the same product and service being offered, then we help them pivot to something that is going to be unique or switch ideal client persona because maybe this one is too saturated than another one. So we go super granular and almost in the weeds, but it's to the benefit of our clients. And we do the same for ourselves as well. We do a lot of research of what's out there in our space to figure out how can we do it better? How can we do it more efficiently? How can we do it in a different way so that there is no hesitation that Athena and our group is very different than all the groups that exist in our space.
That must be fun to watch when your clients or your ideal customers clicks, like they get it and they start to make those shifts in their mindset. That must be really rewarding to watch.
Yeah. We see the growth right away. When they gel and they close their first client at that new price, a client that they really enjoy working with, oh, then it's like, let's go. Let's grow. Let's grow and let's go.
All right, let's talk about the growing part of it. So when you were working with a client who's stuck under that $1 million mark, what systems do you recommend that they have in place in order to actually scale and grow? Is there a process that you guys go through to actually help people break through that barrier?
Yeah, a few different things. One thing is on our website, we have what we call a health and value assessment. What this does is it gives you the 6 value drivers of business where you can go in and self evaluate how you are doing in those different value drivers. And the value drivers are just the basics of business. It's your financials, it's your marketing, your sales, your recruiting, your leadership, and your productivity or operations, whatever you want to call it. Every business has the same foundation, right? And so it's how are you evaluating where you're at in these different value drivers of the business? They're also called value drivers because if and when you ever want to exit or sell your business, these are the things that a potential buyer is going to be evaluating your business on. So the healthier that they are, the more you can get to, we do it on a percentage, that 80% and above, the less likely that potential buyer is going to try to discount the asset that you have built. So we really do that analysis on where you at and what are the areas that can be improved. Typically, when you're talking about a $500,000 business trying to get to $1 million, it comes down to sales and leadership, having the right people in the right seats. So to scale beyond yourself, which is usually around $500,000, you need to have that vision and understand what are you really good at? What are the areas in your business that you can hire someone that is better than you? And even if we get them to the point of hiring those people, it's then how are you holding accountability and delegating and not being the bottleneck as the founder in business? So there's a lot of different areas. It's never just one straight shot or plan because every business comes with a different heartbeat and we have to figure out how to get that back online or to get it to the next level.
Do you find that process to really understand a business must take a lot of time because there's so many things that happen in a business? How long does it take you to figure out, okay, where's your biggest weaknesses? Where's your biggest strengths? Like, how long does it take for you to figure that out for another?
So before we even start working, with a client, and this ties a bunch of things that we've already talked about together. We spend a lot of time with business owners. We have our first discovery call, then we get financials and we get that health and value assessment. But then Cristy and I spend at least 90 minutes to 2 hours with each of them to build a macro roadmap. And that allows us to go a little bit deeper and figure out where are those areas where there is potential weakness, potential breakage, or areas of opportunities that haven't been explored yet. And so then the first, I'm going to call it a phase, but it's really like the first segment of our relationship is a lot of due diligence. So we would operate the same way that a private equity firm or a M&A firm would. We go into due diligence mode and we figure out what is working, what is not working, what is integrated, what is fractioned, and what needs to be fixed. And so the only bottleneck that we're may have would be industry specific, but we're very, very good at doing our homework, diving into industries. And by now, Cristy and I have worked with over 100 businesses. So we have a lot of insights on businesses. We have benchmarks on a lot of industries that we're using to our advantage. And we also have a tremendous network, and we dial a friend if we run into an issue. So we're like, hey, we know that you're an expert in that industry. Can you give me a brief really quick to figure out like what's going on? Where are the bottlenecks? What's the growth, et cetera? And we also have access to the internet. So we leverage tools, we leverage AI, we leverage we do a lot of research in order to become over time experts in our client's business. Now, we're never going to take over them. Sometimes some come to us with 20 years of experience in their space. They speak very fluent. We're very close to fluent in a lot of spaces that we partner with, just because we partner as non-equity business partners, and that makes us co-CEOs. So at some point in time, we have to at least be
Speak the
able to
language.
manage, right? And speak the language. So I
Yeah.
think those are important differentiators for us.
You said a couple things that I wanted to circle back on. You said you use AI, so we'll talk about AI in a minute, but you have a lot of different industries that you are servicing.
Mhm.
Is there common themes that you see where people get stuck? Because she's laughing already. I'm sure there's common themes across industries that you see. What are some of those that you see constantly, and how do you address them in different industries?
I'll go first, but I'll let Aggie expand. So the majority of the time, and it's always shocking to me and people as well, but a lot of business owners play ostrich when it comes to their financials.
Mm.
So we really start there of having a clear picture of their financials, what's working, what's not working, what potentially needs to be eliminated, where do we need to beef things up. So many times, I mean, I literally had a business owner and I was like, how do you track how you're doing if you don't have your P&L complete? And they said, I just check the bank account, make sure I have enough for payroll. That is not a way to run a business, and you're not going to grow with that kind of mindset. So I would say one of the biggest areas is financials, and giving them the confidence and clarity that they can speak to their numbers and understand the stories that they're telling.
Yeah, because a founder can say a lot of stories to themselves that are not based in numbers or reality. They're like, oh,
Exactly.
I'm making money, but are they? Or are they spending half of it in wasted
Exactly.
tools or processes that are not really effective? All right, so financials are one. Aggie, I'm sure you have a couple.
Yes. Financials definitely, because it's the spine of the business. It also depends on the size and where they are in their growth journey. So I would say the second one is people and leadership. Do you have the right players on your team? Do you have the right people in the right seats on the bus? And do you know how to lead them? Managing, we all do it to the best of our ability. Some of us micro, some of us macro. It's a question of how you communicate your expectations and manage those accountabilities. And the clearer you are on your expectations and the better you are at managing those accountabilities and holding your team responsible for their success is huge. And I think that what we've seen with many of our clients is the fact that at some point in time, they get to a place where they don't necessarily realize that they have the wrong people on their teams. I have an analogy in one of the blogs that we've written that's like some AAA baseball players never make it to the majors because it takes a different type of skills. So it goes back to what Cristy was saying earlier, to where you have to hire people who are smarter than you. And please, it does not mean that as a small business, you should hire a chief sales officer that comes from a Fortune 500 company. That is going to be a waste of your time and money, because a person that comes from a company with a lot of resources is never going to succeed in a company that has zero resources, where they have to do the hunting, the closing, and the relationship in one position after they've been used to having a 50% team. So it's like those types of decision making that we see roadblock business owners, is the decision they make around people and how they lead them.
And what about AI? How are you seeing AI affect your business? How are you seeing AI affect your client's business? Are you implementing systems using AI? Tell me everything that you think about AI.
Aggie, I'll let you take this one.
I, Cristy knows that I'm a chronicle TikToker, but I actually watched a
Yeah,
video
I'm a
this
TikToker
morning.
too.
I love it. I watched a video this morning, and this woman she was a HRO, and she was basically talking about some stats that AI is making smarter people smarter, and is making people who have relied on crutches less smart and less likely to use their critical sense. I've always said that garbage in, garbage out. The better you prompt AI, the more helpful it's going to be. If you don't know how to prompt AI and you let it kind of like go wild and create everything for you from scratch, then it's going to be mediocre, because AI does have an algorithm and it doesn't think for itself at least not yet. So you have to put your thoughts in. And if you can't defend what is coming out of AI, then don't use it. So we've been using AI very strategically, one, to maximize our time as well. We use it a lot on our podcast when we're writing our blogs, because we already have original infusion through our chats with our guests. So we use that in order to create blogs, so that we're not recreating the entire process. We do that as well when we have skill labs that we host for our clients, and also our extended network, to create templates, to create processes, and to create blogs as well. So we record ourselves, we have our original thoughts, we use those original thoughts to create more content for our network and our ecosystem. And we encourage our clients to do that too. There are some automations that just make sense. Like, why wouldn't we use them, as long as the human takes over on the back end? I think that's the most important thing, is like, don't replace your humans with AI, enhance your humans with AI, because it does help with efficiency, it does help with speed of execution, and it does help with growth as well. Like, for people who are bogged down with tasks, there are some automations that make absolute sense through AI, especially when, for us as CEOs and founders and co-founders and whatever, when we carry the burden of everybody on our shoulders and we feel like we need to be sales and marketing and ops and HR and recruitment and everything else, then, I mean, when do you live your life? Especially when you have a family. So one of the value driver that we look at is productivity. And how do you increase a human's capacity? Well, now we have AI. So use AI responsibly with your original thoughts, and use it to enhance your efficiency, not to replace someone, because I don't think that we're there yet.
We are absolutely not there yet. If you start to use AI and just expect it to do everything, it is going to be it's a disaster. But I love what you said about using your original thoughts, because I think that is the real key. And we do that a lot in our business too. Is like we do these podcasts. We'll talk about a specific topic that we talked about here. We'll use AI to enhance that into a full-fledged article or a blog, just like you guys are doing. It's a really, really smart way to do that. I saw a video the other day that really kind of explained why AI is not great, but it's essential, because everyone now, if they're not doing AI, is not helping them with generating content or marketing, they're being left behind. But now that everyone can do that, it just means that that is like the base level of where you need to be. Like, if you're not doing that, then you are being left behind. So now there's another level of like, it was supposed to make everything so much easier for us, but now everybody's doing it. So now I have to do even more. It just seems like it's a great tool, and it's going to be essential moving forward. But now you got to figure out the best way to use it and the best way to implement it into your businesses. Because if there's no strategy, it is just like throwing spaghetti in a wall. Hopefully it sticks.
I was just going to add to that. It's interesting because I'm also getting this sense of going back to the basics in certain areas of business. And so the one thing, as I look at my inbox, I've got 15 unsolicited emails offering me some kind of service that I never even inquired about. So what if I'm that actual human that finds someone that I really want to connect with and makes a phone call or makes something more personal about that person? They're going to elicit a response. And so I think we're kind of going back to old school a little bit. And it's really about the relationships, the connection, the communities you create. And then AI should be doing the task driven work on the back end. But leveraging it specifically just for sales without a really strong strategy behind it, I think is becoming a detriment to some of these organizations.
Yeah.
Oh, I totally agree with you. Like, how many times I've spent a little bit too much time on Instagram. When I'm bored or at a stoplight, I'll just look at my Instagram, and like half of the videos now are fake. Like, they're all AI generated. Even sales and marketing stuff are all being generated with AI. I think, to me, people are going to want to see a real person talking about their product and how you can help them instead of a fake AI bot or an AI avatar. I just don't think that people are going to buy into that. It's going to be like spam, just like everything else. But if you see an actual person talking about something with an actual problem that they can actually solve, I think it's going to be way, way more effective than a generated avatar, in my opinion.
We have set such unrealistic expectations.
It's crazy,
And
right?
not only that, but I think that where AI is really failing many business owners, and we've talked about it a little bit, is that as business owners, especially women, we have this need to control everything in our business. So initially, when you start your business, you're kind of like the end all be all. You own the
Mhm.
relationships, you do the sales, you do the marketing, you are your own ops person, you do the billing, you do all of this. And so what AI has done is instead of letting business owners know, hey, it's time to hire someone, there's this, oh, well, now AI can do it for me. So I'm just going to take on even more responsibilities and automate them or use AI, which in some cases, if you're building a lifestyle business and it's all around you, it's great. But if your goal is to grow and scale, then in order to add enterprise value into your business, one of the most important things is that the owner needs to be out of the day to day. So you cannot own the relationships. You cannot be your own bookkeeper, and please don't be your own bookkeeper. Hire a bookkeeper. That's actually one of the least expensive resources that a business owner can hire, even if it's outsourced. You cannot do your own HR because if you have two employees and they're both dissatisfied with you, like who are they going to go see at the end of the day? Which is why there is a plethora of resources that business owners can tap into. It's one of the things that we help them do if we feel like they're taking on way too many responsibilities and owning those critical value drivers that if the goal is for them to exit in 3 to 5 years, they're going to need to get out of that and assume they're visionary. Well, because most business owners are visionaries, not all of them, but most of them are. And so they're always ideating and thinking about what the business is going to do next. But you cannot do that if you're doing all of the things. And that's where AI is, I think, encouraging people to take on more because they feel like they can, but it's not really a good strategy for growth.
I didn't think of it that way. But if you are bootstrapping everything, you're like, oh, great. Now I have a tool that can do all my outreach for me. Now I have a tool that will automate all my content. Now I have a tool that will balance the books, whatever. It gives them a false sense of growing without really having a strategy. That's a very smart point. You talk a lot in your company about being able to, or thinking about your business selling at any point. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when people start a business or even buy into a business, whatever it might be, a lot of people look at it as a job. It's not an asset. And so the reality is, if you're building a business, you are building an asset. You should look at it like any other investment in real estate, the stock market, things of that sort, because at the end of the day, you are pouring all of your time and energy into this asset. You want to make sure you can get an ROI on it. And the other reason why it's really important to build a business that is exit ready is we have seen time and time again where founders or owners have to step out of the day to day business to care for an elderly parent, to care for somebody who's sick. And the worst thing that can happen is that asset goes to zero because you are not there to drive it. That is not building something that is sustainable and successful and allows you to live the life that you need to live in order to care for those around you as well. So, building a business that is exit ready gives you the opportunity. I am a certified exit planning advisor, and they have a practice where they say every single year you should sit down and say, are we going to keep it or are we going to sell it? Every single year, because it should always be an option, no matter what life circumstances bring to you. And as Aggie mentioned, we don't look at it an exit as you are selling the business. It can also mean that I've been doing this for 15 years and I only want to invest 10 hours a week into the business, but still have it be as profitable as it has been and continue on. That is still an exit because we have to figure out how to solve for the day to day that you are now spending 40 to 60 hours in that you want to reduce to 10. That is still an exit. So there's many different lenses to look at it. And it's about the preparedness, right? The businesses that I bought were all failing. No one went in and took out a $500,000 SBA loan expecting that that asset wasn't going to perform for them or that they didn't have the right tools to do it. Yes, I came in and I turned those businesses around and made them profitable, but it's the wrong person in the wrong seat, right? Some people think that, well, it's a franchise, which is what I was in. I should have basically a cookie cutter playbook to get me from A to B so I can be successful. There's so much more than that that goes into a business. It's your mindset, it's your business acumen. There's so many different things. It's how you lead. Those are all things that are very, very essential into running a successful business. So we want to educate people that having a business that is exit ready gives you freedom. And the majority of us go into business for ourselves for freedom.
Absolutely. I love that. It really sounds like you really do think holistically about businesses. It's not just the numbers, it's the mindset, it's like the exit strategy. It's like from beginning to end, like you guys are really thinking about it from a whole perspective. I think I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Um, if somebody wants to work with you and wants your advisory services, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, we hang out on LinkedIn quite a bit, so you can catch us there. But our website is athenaAC.com, stands for Athena Advisory Collective, but also Athena, Aggie, and Cristy, wink, wink. We added our personalities in there. And yeah, I mean, like Cristy said, we have a health and value assessment. So that's no strings attached. You can take it. We'll follow up with you to see if you want to go through it with us. But we won't nudge you because we do not do sales or relationship building, as we call it, in an automated way. So it has to be holistic. And we only work with the people that we like. And we make that very, very clear right from the get go. If there is at any point in time some type of a rift or a value misalignment, then we don't pursue it.
Great. Well, I really appreciate your time, and I learned a lot from you both. So I appreciate you coming on the podcast, and we look forward to seeing what you guys do in the future.
Thank you. It was great.
Thank you so much for having us.